Thank you for being part of WorkSafe's webinar, How WorkSafe Can Help the Multicultural Community. Hi, my name is Rob Kelly. I'm the Deputy Commander of Field Operations here at WorkSafe, and I'll be your host for this session. Now, today I'm joined by Inspector Abby Elliman. Abby has over 20 years experience. Hello, Abby.
Hey, Rob.
Abby has over 20 years experience in occupational health and safety and workers' compensation. She is passionate about educating employers, but also ensuring workers get to go home safe to their loved ones each and every day. Now, she does that not only by webinars like today, but also undertaking workplace inspections to ensure employers are meeting their OHS legal obligations, are providing practical guidance on hazard identification and risk controls, and are communicating and consulting with their workers in relation to matters OHS. So, thanks for joining us, Abby.
Thanks, Rob.
Now, the session today goes roughly around 45 minutes, and the first half we'll hear about who WorkSafe is, but also more importantly about what it means for you and how they can support you as a worker. You'll also get the opportunity to ask some questions in our Q&A session a bit later on, and you'll notice in the bottom right corner you have a chat box. So please, if you have a question already, start putting them in so they're ready once we get to the Q&A section. Now, a special shout out today. We'd like to say hi to the teachers and students at Melbourne Polytechnic. I believe you're joining us today. Thank you very, very much for the interest. And a note, some of the content today maybe have material that's sensitive in nature, and it may be a trigger for some of us. And if that's the case, please feel free to just take a break. So with that, we'll get into it. It is my pleasure to introduce Abby. Abby, it's great to have you here today.
Thanks, Rob, and it's great to be here with you all this morning, and a shout out to the students and teachers of Melbourne Polytechnic. Thank you for joining us today. I'm an inspector with WorkSafe Victoria, and it is my job to help you understand why WorkSafe exists and the terrific resources we have, and many resources that we have in your language that can help you. I'd also like to take you through a presentation on why workplace health and safety is important. So let's begin. Why is health and safety important whilst working? Health and safety is important because it keeps you safe from being injured at work in Victoria. In Victoria, we have laws that protect the health and safety and well-being of employees and other people whilst at work. These laws are the Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations. These laws protect you from unsafe work that may place you at risk of injury, illness, or even death. Your employer must also follow these laws, and they must not do anything that puts your health and safety at risk or risk of injury, illness at work in the workplace. Here is a short video about what does safe at work mean.
If you are working in Victoria, it is your employer's responsibility to keep you safe at work. This includes protecting you from physical and psychological hazards, such as workplace violence and bullying. Your employer must ensure that your workplace safety policies are practiced, and that you understand them, and that you're properly trained how to work safely. If you see something unsafe at work, it is your responsibility to tell someone. Information is available in your language. Please visit worksafe.vic.gov.au/languages, or to speak with someone in your language, call 131 450 and talk to WorkSafe today.
As mentioned earlier, your employer must follow the health and safety laws to prevent you from being hurt or sick whilst at work. Now, under these laws, your employer must provide you with a healthy and safe workplace, provide you with information, instruction, training, and supervision so that you can do your job safely and not put anyone else at risk, provide you with information in your language if you need it, and provide you with personal protective equipment to work safely. And that includes things like gloves, goggles, safety vests, etc., and keep all machinery and equipment safe to use. Your employer must also tell WorkSafe if a serious incident happens at work, or if you're injured and you need time off to recover. Now, examples of serious injuries can include amputations, head injury, eye injury, spinal injury, electric shock, loss of bodily function, or even lacerations that may require stitches. It is important that you understand that whilst your employer must follow these laws, as a worker, you too have a responsibility under these laws. And as a worker, you need to take care of your own health and safety whilst at work, as well as the safety of others. And this includes your workmates and also the community. Follow your employer's instructions and any workplace safety procedures. These instructions and safety procedures are in place to make sure that you can do your job safely. Report any safety hazards or risks identified, report them to your employer. If you see something that's unsafe, or if you're unsure how to do your job safely, you need to make sure that you speak up and ask your boss or manager. Your rights as a worker. As a worker in Victoria, you have a right to be safe at work. If you are asked to do something that you think may be unsafe, it is okay to say no and refuse unsafe work. If you see something that is unsafe, it is important that you speak up and report it to your employer and your manager. If you're injured at work, you should report the incident to your employer. They must keep a record of the injury and notify WorkSafe Victoria. Remember, it is always okay to say no to unsafe work. Here is a short video about what does safe at work mean.
Sometimes incidents happen at work. When they do, WorkSafe is there to help. WorkSafe is there to make sure all workers are as safe as possible in the workplace. It is a legal requirement for all Victorian industries and workers to be covered by WorkSafe in case there is a workplace injury. As a worker, you are covered even if you are working full-time, part-time or casual. If you are injured at work, you should make a claim to your employer. This will help you to get compensation for any time off work and medical costs for your injury, getting you back to safe work as soon as possible. The good news is there is minimal cost to your employer. WorkSafe works with workers and employers. However, their main goal is to ensure safety in the workplace at all times. They do this by doing inspections of workplaces to make sure they are using safe work practices. Information is now available online in your language at worksafe.vic.gov.au/languages. Or to speak with someone in your language, call 131 450 and talk to WorkSafe today.
WorkSafe is the health and safety regulator in Victoria and plays a very important role in the lives of Victorian employers and workers. WorkSafe aims to keep all workplaces healthy and safe and to provide care and treatment when workers are injured. WorkSafe upholds the health and safety laws in Victoria and conducts visits to workplaces to make sure employers are following the law and that workplaces are safe. If an incident occurs at work or you report a health and safety issue, a WorkSafe inspector, like myself, may visit your workplace to make sure that your employer is following these laws. If you're injured whilst you're working, WorkSafe may also be able to provide you with support, and that includes medical treatment or payments if you are unable to work. So let's take a little look at WorkSafe inspectors. WorkSafe inspectors conduct visits in Victorian workplaces and we respond to health and safety issues. Now, an inspector may enter your workplace during working hours or any time there is an immediate risk to health and safety. Typically, an inspector will visit your workplace for 3 reasons. WorkSafe may be focusing on a particular hazard or industry. That may include something like forklift safety or even chemical safety. We may be there because somebody's been injured. There's been a serious injury reported at your workplace. Or there may be a health and safety concern that's been reported that they wanted an inspector to follow up on. When an inspector attends your workplace, they'll provide advice and information about work-related hazards and risks and how these can be controlled or eliminated. If you have a health and safety rep, the inspectors will speak with them and invite them to be part of the inspection. Health and safety reps also play an important role in helping keep workplaces safe. The Occupational Health and Safety Act gives health and safety reps a role in raising and resolving any occupational health and safety issues with their employer. And health and safety reps represent their designated work groups on occupational health and safety issues and concerns, and they can help facilitate that communication and consultation, and they do provide that critical link between employers and employees. If you see something that is unsafe at work and your employer has not fixed the problem, you can contact WorkSafe anonymously and request a visit from an inspector. Your employer will not know that you reported a safety issue. So, what is a hazard? Unsafe working conditions may put you in danger both physically and also mentally. Hazards in the workplace can include things like repetitive movement and heavy lifting, working with unguarded machines, working with chemicals, working in noisy or even hot or cold environments. Now remember, you have the right to refuse unsafe work that puts your health and safety at risk of injury or illness. Here we have a few examples of hazards that you may have seen in the workplace. We've got a broken or unstable ladder that may cause you to fall, a blocked drain causing water to pool, creating a slip hazard, an overloaded forklift where operator's vision is blocked, which can cause damage to the forklift. Now, if we just touch on forklifts for a second, forklifts are a common feature found in many types of different workplaces. They offer practical materials handling solutions, but for many businesses, they continue to be associated with workplace deaths and injuries, which inspectors are called out to attend regularly. The human and financial costs of forklift-related incidents for workers, industry, and the community is substantial. However, forklift incidents can be prevented when safety measures are in place and are being followed. Let's touch on mental health at work. Work is a big part of our daily lives. Sometimes work can impact not only our physical health, but also our mental health. The psychological hazards a psychological hazard is anything that can cause physical injury, mental injury, or both at the same time. Examples of psychological hazards include bullying, stress, sexual harassment, fatigue, and can include customer violence or abuse. It's important that you report these issues to your employer, and it is their job to prevent them from occurring. If your employer does not respond to an issue, you can contact WorkSafe for further advice. Let's look at several key issues that affect multicultural communities in the workplace. This includes things like fatigue, wage theft, bullying, harassment, sexual harassment, and discrimination, and we'll break these down for you further. Fatigue is severe or ongoing state of tiredness that leads to physical, mental, or emotional exhaustion and prevents people from performing their jobs safely within normal boundaries. It affects a person's health, increases the chance of workplace injury, and reduces performance and productivity within the workplace. It can be caused by working long hours or even working during the times that are your natural sleep times. Wage theft is very common in the multicultural community, and it is illegal. You may be a victim of wage theft if your employer has deliberately underpaid you, dishonestly withheld wages, superannuation, or other entitlements, or falsified employee entitlement records to gain financial advantage. You can contact the Wage Inspectorate in Victoria on 1800 287 287 if you believe you're experiencing wage theft from your employer. Let's touch on bullying and harassment, and this is defined by WorkSafe as unreasonable behaviour, repeated unreasonable behaviour, and it can include verbal abuse, intimidation and threats, withholding information that is essential for someone to do their job, excluding or isolating others, and interfering with someone's personal property or work equipment. When we look at bullying and harassment, your employer should have policies and procedures for addressing the bullying and harassment in the workplace. These should be communicated and promoted in your workplace. Employees should be encouraged to report workplace bullying, and your employer should address these reports of workplace bullying as early as possible. They also need to provide assistance and support to their employees. Sexual harassment is a common form of gendered violence and involves any unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature that can be reasonably expected to make a person feel offended, humiliated, or intimidated. Some types of sexual harassment can include touching, staring, leering, suggestive comments or jokes, sexually explicit pictures or posters, repeated invitations to go out on dates, requests for sex, or intrusive questions about a person's private life or body. If you are experiencing sexual harassment, there are a number of services that can support you. There is the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health on 1-800-656-421 and the Migrant Workers Centre 96593516. Finally, race discrimination is when someone is being treated unfairly or bullied because of their race, skin colour, ancestry, nationality, or ethnic background. Under the Equal Opportunity Act, race means a person's colour, descent or ancestry, nationality, ethnic background, or any characteristics associated with a particular race. This video will briefly explain what to do if you're injured at work.
A WorkSafe claim can be made when you are injured at work. A claim is different to sick leave. It's where you get time off work and medical expenses paid because of your work-related injury. To make a claim, follow these steps. First, tell your employer immediately about the incident. Then, when you seek treatment for your injury, be sure to keep copies of all receipts and invoices from your appointments. Then, complete the worker's injury claim form and give it to your employer. It is important to remember that your company cannot refuse your claim or fire you for making one. The good news is there is minimal cost to your employer. If your claim is accepted, you'll be given a WorkSafe agent case manager. They will guide you through your recovery and help you return to work. During this time, stay in contact with your employer. If they can do anything to make your work safer, tell them, so that they can organise it for when you return to work. Information is now available online in your language. Please visit worksafe.vic.gov.au/languages. Or to speak with someone in your language, call 131 450 and talk to WorkSafe today.
So what to do if you're injured at work? If you're injured at work and it is serious, visit your doctor immediately or call 000 if it is an emergency. Tell your employer as soon as you can. They must keep a record of your injury and tell WorkSafe Victoria. If you need time off work, see your doctor and get a certificate of capacity. If you are unable to work and need time off to recover, you may be eligible for paid time off. You should complete a workers' claim form and give it to your employer. Your employer must submit your claim form to their WorkSafe agent. If you need to contact WorkSafe for advice or to report a safety issue, you can call anonymously and free by using the number on this slide. If you require an interpreter, one will also be available. You can organise the interpreter through 13 14 50. WorkSafe also has translated information available online in 19 different languages to help everybody understand their health and safety rights and to assist you with the knowledge and confidence to raise questions or concerns. This includes translated advice for workers, resources for employers, and videos featuring real workers who share their experiences in Victorian workplaces. That concludes the presentation.
Thanks, Abby. That was a fabulous overview. There's a lot in there. And the key message for me in many ways is regardless in any language, and you said there was 19 different languages we produce material in, WorkSafe is here to help.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for that. It's time for questions. So we are getting a few coming through at the moment. So I'll kick off with the first one if you're ready.
Yeah.
What resources or advice can you suggest to provide employees information about safe work, especially in low English, literacy, numeracy environment?
As we spoke about earlier, there are many documents on our website, a lot of publications and information in lots of different languages. You've got Arabic, Greek, Chinese, Burmese. There's a whole range of languages that have got the simple health and safety advice broken down in your language. If you have a specific question that you're not sure about or what to do, you can contact the advisory service. They'll organise the interpreter and you'll be able to have that conversation with somebody over the phone that might help you make a decision on whether you've had a workplace injury, how to make a claim, or whether you want to have an inspector come out and visit your workplace. So there are plenty of resources available. You can always pick up the phone and contact our advisory service and they can point you in the right direction.
Thank you. Now, the next question is from Di, and she says, does WorkSafe provide translation services for employers to access to translate OH&S documents into a foreign language?
That's a good question. We may actually already have that information already translated for you, Di. So we probably want to check whether we've already done the hard work for you. Not that, to my knowledge, not that I'm aware, but that is certainly something that we may want to consider in the future. But as I said, there is plenty of documents already translated and you might already find what you need on our website.
And is it fair to say that under the duties that are imposed on employers, that communicating with your workforce and consulting being a very important part of that, you must communicate in a way that they can understand the hazards or the risks or the controls that are in place. So in many ways, it's up to the employer to ensure they're providing that such information, instruction and training, I think it's called, in a way that they can understand it, meaning they may well have to organise that interpretation service.
Absolutely. And it's not uncommon in workplaces where you might find a group of employees that speak maybe Mandarin or a specific language where you have large groups, that employers will actually translate safety instructions for their workers. So they're providing information in the language that they understand. There's no point in providing them information in English if their English is, they don't speak English, or if they're not going to be able to understand what you want them to do. So I have seen in many workplaces where employers have got documents translated in the language of the workforce.
Okay, thank you. The next one's from Nick. It says, are immigrants ever educated on workers' rights and the requirement on employers to provide a safe environment as part of the immigration process to Oz? Now, I think there's a couple of things in there. Not necessarily from WorkSafe's point of view, but we do have a lot of information on our website, and I'll get you to confirm this, Abby. But also, I think you mentioned about the Migrant Worker Centre as well. Is what's the different ways workers can either be told or informed or find out?
There is the Migrant Resource Centre. There are other unions and employer associations that you can tap into, government agencies like ourselves. I'm not sure whether immigration actually do any of that particular training, but in Victoria, we definitely have plenty of resources that migrants, migrant workers and migrants can access on our website, and by also contacting us directly over the phone.
Thanks for that question, Nick. The next one is, are employees who do not speak English able to report safety concerns to WorkSafe in their own language?
Well, yes, by using the translation services. So if they don't speak English, or their English is, maybe they're unable to explain it properly in English, then certainly if they contact the advisory service and tell them that they need an interpreter in Italian, for example, they'll be able to organise that for them, and then they can relay the information to the advisor. And if we need to send an inspector, then that can be passed on to our inspectorate. So you can report an issue, even if you don't speak English, you can report it in your language via an interpreter.
And some people may be thinking contacting advisory through the phone, but there's other methods we can do it as well.
Absolutely. Yes, you can email the advisory service. You might have somebody who will write up an email for you. If you not sure how to do that, they can actually email us directly. Some people will send photos if they're not, a picture tells 1,000 words, they say. So somebody might take a photo and send that through to us via email and say, look, I think this is unsafe. I've reported it to my employer. They haven't done anything about it. Can we have an inspector go out and visit? So that's another way of communicating with us.
And let's say I'm working in regional Victoria and I know where my local WorkSafe office is. Can I go in there and get that same type of support there?
Absolutely. You can come into the WorkSafe office and have a chat to an inspector if they are available. You can ask to speak to an inspector and get some advice. You may not want to, may want to be anonymous. It's up to yourselves, but you can certainly walk into a WorkSafe office and ask to speak to an inspector. If there's none available at the time, we can always make an appointment for you to come back or for somebody to contact you over the phone.
And I understand that at reception, they can actually put you through to advisory from that location as well. So by the sounds of it, there's a number of different ways you can communicate with WorkSafe to get help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Next up is, will WorkSafe provide workers claim forms in other languages?
I'm not sure. Are we working on that, Rob? You might be more in the know than I am in this one.
I'm not across it, but I'll tell you what, we will take that one on notice. So thank you very, very much for that question.
Yes.
Next one up is, how important is it that workers speak up if they see something that makes them uncomfortable at work?
It is very, very important to speak up. And I know sometimes for many workers, it is quite hard to do that. There may be other issues in the background. It may be a small workplace. There may only be 2 or 3 workers. And you sort of think, well, if I ring WorkSafe, they're going to know it's me. So it's important to speak up about a health and safety issue, because if your employer does not know about it, how are they going to fix it? So they may not even be aware of, a machine that's broken down or a slip hazard or whatever it might be. If you don't report it, they can't fix it. If you are hesitant about reporting a health and safety issue, you can always do that anonymously by contacting the advisory service. The inspectors don't disclose where complaints have come from. We receive them anonymously. We don't tell the employer, it may be a worker or a customer or whoever. It is anonymous. So we just go out and undertake those inspections. And there may be an issue where it needs to be rectified, but there may not be. So certainly speak up. If you are uncomfortable going directly to your manager, you can report it to your health and safety rep if there is one at the workplace, or you may report it through to WorkSafe as well. So there are lots of avenues. There may be an incident report form you can complete with your employer. You may go through the rep. You may go through a worker to report it on your behalf. So there's lots of different ways you can report safety hazards, but your employer is responsible for keeping you safe at work. If they don't know about it, they can't fix it. Well, you give them the opportunity to fix it. If they do nothing, that's when you come to us.
Thank you. This one is about legislation. So is it legislation that all notices and WorkSafe information has to be displayed in the native language of employees?
I'm assuming that's improvement notices. Is that what notices? Is that what that means?
WorkSafe information, I think it's a mix there. And I know if I take WorkSafe information, I think we covered that off a little bit earlier on about if your workforce, if you have to communicate with your workforce, you have to do it in such a way as they can understand it. And I'm assuming that would also mean in a language or in a form that they can understand.
That's right. And a lot of communication in workplaces, excuse me, is not necessarily words. It can be pictures. So the most effective form of communication a lot of the time, for example, you might have a safe operating procedure that you're going through with a new employee, or you want to have displayed near a piece of equipment. Pictures tell 1,000 words. If you've got something that's, got some clear pictures on how to operate a machine safely, that will mean more than a whole bunch of text that has been written out and stuck near a machine, or, you've given to your workers. So communication can also come in different forms as well.
And it's interesting because it talks about the notice, and let's work on that from our point of view. If an inspector issues a notice, that's normally in English. And if I'm a worker and I don't understand that, again, could I ring the advisory service and say, okay, I need someone to translate this for me? Now, I know, as I understand, it's the duty of the employer to make sure the employees understand it as well. But is that available to them?
Is it available to them
to ring up to advisory and seek a translator?
Yeah, absolutely. They can certainly seek a translator. If they're wanting to understand what a notice says or what the notice was about, I would encourage them, if they have the details of the inspector, maybe to contact the inspector directly, because the inspector will be able to explain why that notice was issued and what compliance may look like for the workplace, so they can get a bit more detail around the specific notice if they're not sure.
Thank you. Next one is, what kind or how much engagement does WorkSafe have from multicultural communities, given that there may be many barriers around visas, gig economy, and black money?
We do a lot of work with the multicultural community. We do many presentations with the multicultural community and try to work with, migrant resource centres, other multicultural community providers. There's always more to be done, obviously, and we do a lot of work in regional Victoria. But certainly, if you've got some ideas how we can reach the multicultural community some more, please let us know, because we're always looking for new opportunities to reach out to our cold communities. So please do let us know if you think, hey, why don't you attend this? Or I think this might be a good idea for you to tap into. We're always looking for new ideas. So please let us know.
As I understand it, our programs area, which is the area that sets up, where inspectors need to go to or what workplaces need to be looked at. You mentioned cold there. They have, that is key part of what they look to do, as well as to engage, whether it's at-risk workers, cold workers, and even youth in that area as well. So as I understand it, that area exists in WorkSafe. Is that the case?
Absolutely. I mean, there are many vulnerable workers within the Victorian community. It's not just people who don't, English is not their first language. It could be, senior Victorians who are out in the workplace, or young workers who are working. They're also vulnerable. So we certainly have a program around inspecting workplaces and making sure that those vulnerable workers are protected and looked after.
Thank you. Next one up we have is, do employees have to disclose if they have a previous injury that may impact their ability to work in their current environment and to complete their duties?
So back to my workers' compensation days, if you're asked by your employer to disclose any injuries, you should really be honest with your employer, because you don't want to be doing a job that may place your health and safety at risk or may aggravate an existing injury. You should always be honest. If they're not asking you the question, well, then that's up to you whether you disclose it. But if they are asking you the question, you should disclose the injury. If you're concerned about the work you're being asked to do and you believe it's unsafe, that's when, you can report it. We can get involved and we can have a look at whether there is a health and safety issue there at the workplace.
Thank you. How did WorkSafe select the 19 languages? Understanding there are so many different languages and the public have such a broad background.
How did we select the 19 languages?
Yes.
Well, I wasn't privy to how that would happen, but I'm assuming that they selected it based on how popular certain languages are, and I guess this cross-section of community that we engage with. So there was obviously a need to have certain languages that we needed publications to be translated in. But are you aware, Rob, how they selected those?
I think the logic is what you just said, is probably looked at the bulk. Now, having said that, and unfortunately it's an anonymous question, but if you believe there's another language that we should consider, again, just call through to an advisory service and ask for it.
Yes.
It is how we can help the multicultural community is what today's about. And as we know, it's a growing community. So as populations change and the demographics change as well, it's important that we stay across it as well. So happy to hear from you. Cut Di again. So given seasonal workers program is a fundamental government initiative, are we struggling to find ASLAMA OH&S documents or translators from Vanuatu? I think that's a very specific question. I think we can take that one on notice. And Di, if you're comfortable to send us an email through on that, that's something we can take and comment or respond to. Next up is, how can we report issues around personal well-being and sexual racial discrimination in the workplace?
So as I talked about in the presentation, your employer may already have a policy and procedure around discrimination, bullying and harassment within your workplace. Please find out if they do. Most workplaces do have those systems in place for employees to report discrimination or bullying and harassment within the work environment. It might be under the code of conduct. There might be a specific bullying and harassment policy and procedure. If they don't have a specific policy and procedure, you should raise this issue directly with your employer and allow them the opportunity to resolve the issue for you. If you are unsatisfied or if the employer has dismissed it and they're doing nothing about it, then you can certainly come to us and we can then be involved and have an inspector make some further inquiries whether whether there's been a breach of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, whether they need to have a more robust system around dealing with discrimination, harassment, whatever it might be that you're experiencing within the workplace, you certainly have the option of coming to us if you get no joy from raising it with your employer.
Thank you. This is interesting. One specific, what part of Section 25 of the OH&S Act states that it is the responsibility of the worker to report something unsafe? Now, I was, while you were talking earlier, and I actually saw that question come up, so I've checked Section 25 of the OH&S Act that states employees must take reasonable care for the health and safety of others who may be affected by their act or omissions, cooperate with anything the employer does to comply with OH&S requirements, not intentionally or recklessly interfere with or misuse anything at the workplace for OH&S. So the bit in there, but I think the basic point is Section 25 is the duty on an employee. Much of the Act is about the duty of the employer. This is a particular section. So really, when it talks, the question that talks about, what part states that it's the responsibility of the worker. That whole section, if I'm not wrong, is about the responsibility of the employee to do basically the right thing and make sure anything they do doesn't put someone else at risk, including raising concerns. Is that correct?
Yes. That is correct. So it's about making sure that you don't hurt yourself, but also don't hurt anybody else within the workplace. So a classic example might be your employer provides you with safety equipment, a vest, hearing, earmuffs or gloves, whatever it might be. If you're being provided with that equipment to protect yourself, make sure that you use that equipment to protect yourself within the workplace, and make sure that you don't do anything that actually hurts somebody else within the workplace. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Protect yourself, but also make sure that your acts don't endanger anybody else that might be at the workplace as well.
Thank you. There are a lot of physical hazards. So how do hazards around well-being get noticed or reported?
I guess it goes back to the employer having a system of work to manage bullying, harassment, sexual harassment, any other psychosocial issues that you may encounter within the workplace. So they get reported through raising it directly with your employer, going through their system of the resolution on how those issues can be resolved. A lot of the times we ask people, if you do, for example, are experiencing bullying and harassment within the workplace, to make sure that that's documented. If you have any witnesses to it, that you've documented that information maybe in a diary, and you take that to your employer. If your employer doesn't have a system, then we do have a psychosocial team that deals specifically with bullying, harassment issues, psychosocial issues within the workplace, and they can then look into it a little bit further with the information that you provide, and you can actually lodge that psychosocial complaint or service request through contacting the advisory service.
No worries, thank you. This one is, how do immigrant workers know WorkSafe exists before starting a job? Especially they're coming from countries with where organisations like WorkSafe doesn't exist.
Well, I guess that's why we're here today, Rob. It's exactly why we have these sessions and why we work really closely with the multicultural community, is to basically get out there that we do exist. There is a safety regulator in Victoria, and there are laws that employers and employees must follow. Some migrants may come from countries where there isn't a health and safety regulator, so they may not be aware, but we do work very closely with our migrant partners to make sure that WorkSafe's message is out there. And if you have any questions, please come to us. We're more than happy to answer, and we'll continue to work with the multicultural community to get that message out there.
I think you mentioned a few things there about communication, and one of the things we're big into, whether it's through the newspapers, whether it's through television, advertising, radio, publications, the workplace may actually have it up on the wall. So there's a whole range of different ways that WorkSafe tries to penetrate into the community to say, here we are. And we're here to, ensure at the end of the day, reduce workplace harm and make sure everybody gets to go home safely. So again, fair to say that WorkSafe does a lot of penetration into the community to kind of keep them educated as to what's there.
Absolutely. It's not one size fits all. We have a whole bunch of different tools that we use to make sure that we can actually be engaged with the multicultural community.
No worries. Thank you. What role do workers play in keeping their workplace safe? What do they need to do or understand?
Workers and health and safety reps play a very crucial role in making sure that workplaces are safe. Communication between the workers and the employer is probably one of the key things. Consultation when changes are made within the workplace. If you see something that's unsafe, speak up. You may not be injured, but your work colleague might be injured because, you saw something and didn't say something to the employer. It's important that that communication dialogue is kept open. I know employers are busy and, especially small business, they've done it hard in the last few years. But if you see something that's unsafe or you think, oh, this doesn't feel right to me, please speak up and keep that communication open between yourself and the employer. That's the best way to keep workers safe at work.
Thank you. Let's have a look now. So we got a few more still going. Di again, here we go. So would you please remind me of the advisory service phone number and email address? Now, Di, we actually will be putting that up on screen at the end for you to have. So that will be available to you. Hopefully that works for you. Next one is, what do you do if employer has asked you to use equipment that you deem to be unsafe?
So you can, as an employee, you can refuse unsafe work. If you believe that there is something that's unsafe, you can refuse to do that task. What I would say is if you have a health and safety rep at your workplace, you need to talk to the health and safety rep about what you believe is unsafe, because health and safety reps also have powers similar to inspectors, where they can issue a PIN, which is a provisional improvement notice on the employer. They can actually cease a workplace from operating. They can issue a notice to make sure that things get fixed to the employer. So they have rights if you have a health and safety rep. If you don't have a health and safety rep and you don't feel comfortable in raising this issue with your employer or with your workplace, then you can certainly come to us and an inspector will go out and make some inquiries.
Thank you. What will WorkSafe inspector do if a health and safety issue is reported?
Good question. So if a health and safety issue is reported to us, we will go out and make inquiries. So we'll visit your workplace, we'll talk with the health and safety rep, we'll also talk with the employees, and we'll make a determination whether there's been a breach of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, whether there are any improvements that can be made within that workplace to make the workplace safe. If there is, the employer will receive an improvement notice. And there'll be a time frame on that notice. So it might be that the inspector might come back in a couple of weeks to check whether those improvements have been made. But we negotiate with the employer to look at, okay, what is reasonably practicable to maybe fix a guard or replace something, or replace something that's broken, or whatever it might be. We talk with the employer and the workers and determine what is a fair time frame to actually get that done, and we go back and check that it's been done. So we always do that follow-up just to make sure that if a notice was issued, then we go back and check that it's actually been rectified if there is a breach.
Now we're out of time. However, there is only one more question. So I'm going to indulge. So what sort of concerns do you think the multicultural community may have with WorkSafe?
From my experience, I think some of the concerns would be that if they report something that's unsafe to WorkSafe, I think there's a lot of worry about maybe losing their jobs. So under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, if you report a health and safety issue, if you raise health and safety issues, you can't be discriminated against or sacked for raising a health and safety issue specifically. That's written into the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And I know there are many people in the migrant community that are concerned about that, or about repercussions for raising a health and safety concern. You can do it anonymously. Just remember that you don't have to leave your details or your name. If you believe there is something unsafe in the workplace, you can call us, you can use an interpreter, you can contact us and raise the concern, and we will then go out there and determine whether there needs to be any changes made. And we will not tell them that it's come from a particular worker or from the workplace. It is anonymous.
Thank you. Well, that's it for the questions. And Abby, I just want to say thank you very, very much for answering all of those as we went through them.
No problem.
So we hope today and this session you found interesting and informative for you. The webinar will be available online next month on our website, so please keep an eye out for that. And that will also still have information in there. Now, shortly on screen, the information that we mentioned today will come up for you to use. And it also should be able to guide you that if you do feel unsafe, either physically or mentally at work, please contact us. Please raise your concerns through to us. And you can do that. And if you have an urgent matter, you can do that by ringing our advisory service, remembering that our emergency line is actually open 24/7. Now, before I close off, we are interested in getting your feedback on Health and Safety Month. It's a big month for us here, both in relation to webinars or any of the events you've seen. If you have any feedback, you'll shortly get a link to provide some information or feedback to us on a survey. As a way of saying thank you for that, you'll go into the draw for one of 5 $100 vouchers. So please take the time. We really do want to make each year better. And with that, thank you for joining us today.